Please rise for the invocation given by Councilwoman Sarah Lucido. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, we are grateful for the many blessings you bestow upon us. We are especially thankful for all the people who volunteer their time and talent to the benefit of our city. Whether it is by serving on a commission, planting flowers, mentoring our children, or in any other way, giving back to our community is a tremendous gift. Please continue to watch over all of these wonderful people and all of our residents. It is in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Here.
Councilmember Lucido?
Here.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Here.
Mayor Pixley?
Here. And with that, we'll move into the first hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard?
Madam Mayor, real quick before we do that, can I add an item to the agenda?
Sure.
I'd like to motion to add a discussion on the purchasing policy to the agenda. Could go at the end of new business.
All right, support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. All right. Does anyone wish to be heard at this time? Mr. Guisella. Former councilman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, all of council and administration. Bill Sweeney is much more than just a name at the foot of a sledding hill in Spindler Park. Bill was one of the great advocates for our city. He cared about Eastpointe and got involved. He was active in youth sports and served our city at the council table for 9 years. This Saturday is the 3rd anniversary of Bill's untimely passing. He helped make our city better, and more, he inspired others to join him on his quest to make Eastpointe the best it could possibly be. Bill not only loved our city, he also loved being on city council. He respected this institution's and the decisions it rendered. Whether Bill voted in the majority or in the minority, he always respected the outcome, held no grudges, and moved on to the next issue. To those of us who knew Bill, he always wore his heart on his sleeve. He was a straight shooter and became much better at being politically correct as time went on. He encouraged people to be as involved in the community as he was, and it did not have to be a huge undertaking. He wanted people to walk on the sidewalks and not in the street. He wanted people to wave and smile at neighbors and total strangers alike. He wanted people to help others in the community with a kind word or deed. A lot has changed in our city since Bill left us, but much of what Bill did and wanted to do continues to live on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good memories. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Creech.
Madam Mayor, Council, the last few meetings, my name is Harvey Creech, resident of Eastpointe, live on Lathan, 50-plus years. I'm here to talk about the same thing about it. Maybe I'm here just to say somebody's lying to somebody. Right now, I said I just got an application back. It says, application for public information. I said, Patriot Building, copies and invoices. Every invoice, every purchase order, every check written, and back to the contractors for all parts of 16 and 17, the job with no engineer or no contract who was responsible. All right, well, I got quite a bit of information back. Matter of fact, it's a pretty good little packet. There's a little bit of a problem. Some of it's missing, again. And it says right here, every time I get these back, it says, your request is granted in its entirety, and please find the responsive documents enclosed. The cost of the request was, it cost me $37.78. But after I got all done, I ran in, and when I got done, I found a few things missing. It says, you know, here we got gutters, here it's got roof repair, here we got glass, here we got block demolition, here we got bathroom repairs, but we don't have an air conditioner. We don't have a hot water furnace. We don't have a hot water heater. We don't have a furnace. We don't have electrical and maintenance. But it's really surprisingly, as I said before too, after another FOIA, I went back and I find one. It's $13,800 and some under Spindler, but it's got electrical work. I find another one, $325 under Spindler. It's not in this package. I paid. I wanted the true results from all of this. I'm tired of asking. This is the third FOIA I've asked for. And under this, as I said, the best one I want to read is under Spindler Park. It's got glass glazing, $4,990. It's got glass glazing, $4,990. Under glass glazing, it's got $4,995. Under block demolition, it's got $4,996. Under bathroom repairs, it's got $4,942. And as I said,
30 seconds, sir.
pardon me?
You have 30 seconds.
It says purchases over $5,000 or more put up for bidding. All these are under that. People think about what I just got done saying. If it's over $5,000, you bid. If it's not, that's the same as the $14,000 at Spindler's, which I think was probably the furnace, which was probably the hot water tank and the rest of stuff, but he put it under electrical. Was there a contract for that? We're doing a lot of this stuff
Your time
right now.
is up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. You're welcome to come back to the second hearing in the public. Does anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? If not, the first hearing in the public is closed, and we'll move to approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of September the 5th, 2017.
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 5th, 2017.
We have support?
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Our next item is a scheduled hearing for the Justice Assistance Grant. Does anyone wish to speak on that? That's for special equipment. Anyone wish to speak on that? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to unfinished business. We'll start off with the second reading and the adoption of ordinance number 1144, which relates to a change in the bylaws for city council. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to give second reading and adopt ordinance number 1144, which amends Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, City Council, Section 2.21, Bylaws of Council.
Support?
Move and support it. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
And our second item under that is the MML City Manager Search Timeline. This was something that was tabled from our last meeting. Any further discussion on this?
I'm of the same opinion I was at the last meeting. I am willing to make a motion unless council wants to discuss it first.
Mrs. Lucido?
No, I think I've decided which way I'm going to vote this evening.
Mr. DeMonico?
Sure, I think I do agree after thinking about it, since MML wants to wait until after the election. We might as well get started now, as Mr. Kleinfeld said. Hate going back on my original vote, but I think we could even do both, as he said. We could go with MML after this, after a couple months, after we look out on the ICMA boards or MML boards, you know, our own website, Facebook, that sort of thing. So that's how I feel about it, Madam Mayor.
You know, I'll update since it's been 2 weeks since we last met. Last time, as I had stated, it had taken 84 days between the time that we had decided to do a search and then a candidate was picked. And then I believe within a month, the contract negotiations were finalized and Steve accepted it at a council meeting. We are now 105 days, and we still haven't done anything. We haven't taken first steps, even though we knew we were going to be doing the search June 6th. So, as I did before, I will make a motion to notify MML that we will not be utilizing their services and to instruct the administration to post to ICMA and MML and any other mediums, you know, our website, Facebook, a job posting to accept applications. I suppose I should add some things to that motion. I'll throw out that applications should be due by October 20th by 4 p.m., and that'll be my complete motion.
Support that.
Can I ask a question? The information we sent out to you, was the description and everything okay, other than being updated?
Yes, it was okay with me. One of the descriptions had some language that I thought I'd want to make sure was included. Are you talking about the sample one?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Let me make sure that's the one that had what I
What we
wanted.
gave you in the packet that you requested to see what we did the last time was what we published and what we put out there. Obviously, it needs to be updated quite a bit, but I want to make sure that you're happy with what we gave you. So because tomorrow we're going to start on this.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I saw that under Michigan law, candidates can request confidentiality, which was another thing that concerned me about the MML. They pitched to us that applications could not be confidential, and upon some research, that's not accurate. So, not seeing any benefit. I thought this posting looked good, so yes.
Okay.
And what are you going to do after October 20th?
Well, by that time, we'll have applications for us to review. I mean, we don't have to set a motion to pick a date to do interviews or to discuss how we're going to pick. I think last time, each council member did their top three, and I assigned points.
So you're
based on that.
looking to appoint somebody before the election?
Not necessarily. It depends on if we are able to find somebody. Yeah, I was just throwing out the October 20th date because it's, a month from today. If, I don't even know what day that is actually, but if Friday, if someone wanted to move it to the following Friday so there was at least 30 days of posting, that's fine with me too.
So that's going to end up being, and we have no meetings at all that first week of November, correct?
Correct.
So the first meeting after that date would be the special meeting after the election.
Oh, yeah, so looking at this, I don't see the timeline, us being able to appoint before the election. But that's really not something that's determining how I want to proceed with this. So I imagine we would do interviews sometime in November then.
And I like October 20th. We could always extend it at that point if we need it, if only a couple folks put in applications, or we could determine then how to proceed.
Yeah, most of the time when you look at what ICMA and MML websites for city managers, usually they have a date specific unless they put the caveat in there until filled. I don't like that. I like giving, I don't like the, I also don't like the infamous, depending on the qualification, the DOQ for salary and that kind of stuff. So I think you got to tell them up front what you expect and when you want it. So if it's the 20th, I think the 20th it is, and we'll go for there. I like to give, managers like to know up front what they're getting into.
And what would you think about salary if you reviewed all of that?
Well, currently, we're at 107, but that's negotiable.
I know, but the salary that's listed on the thing, on this thing is in the low 90s.
Yeah, that's also 6 years old, so.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think that there's a lot of things in the information that was provided to us, if you go that route, that need to be reviewed and changed and come to some conclusions.
Well, I do agree that we need to update the salary.
Could I suggest that we have a closing that is not a Friday, in case somebody wanted to walk it in, or we don't get mail on Friday? That you
You have
make
to
it a Monday
remember-
through Thursday for a cutoff?
You have to remember, too, that it takes at least 6 days for any type
What
of
about the 25th?
mail to get to the
23rd.
city.
I'd be happy to amend my motion to October 23rd, which is the Monday following that, the 20th.
Support.
Do you want to state your motion again? Number one, that you're canceling the MML contract that has been signed. How many days do we have to give for them to cancel the contract?
I think we can just call them and say we're going a different
Okay.
direction.
It was in the paper that we signed, it was stated just above the signature line that we can terminate at any time.
Okay.
Okay, so, it's October 23rd? Okay. I motion that administration notify MML not to proceed with the city manager search, and that we put our own posting on the ICMA website, MML, and any other mediums you deem proper, and the applications will be due by 4 PM on October 23rd.
And then should we just give like 24 hours for us to maybe email in changes to this about like the salary? And, or should we just discuss a couple of those?
Because we need to update it anyways, so,
Let's take the vote on this motion
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
So please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley.
No. All right, now go ahead with the qualifications.
In terms of the salary, I mean, I didn't see much that I thought needed changing.
You think
think we should
90,000
increase it?
will attract somebody?
I'm sorry?
I don't think we should increase it. from
No, I'm
90,000.
saying that does have to be changed.
Qualifications?
I think the qualifications were pretty good, as they asked for before.
I believe our qualifications are outlined in the charter. Unless we want to add any additional information to it. At this point, I think what you provided us is fine. If we want to change salary, we could say something along the lines of last city manager was hired at, insert here, and then salary negotiable. Salary and benefits negotiable, because realistically, that's how we get to a contract.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. That sounds good to me.
In the profile, the candidate profile, was there anything you wanted to change in that? Any additional demonstrated expertise?
There's not anything I wanted to change at this time. Do you, I mean, is the suggestion that Cardi gave something we want to do? The thing that I'm just kind of trepidatious about is that if we disagree on any type of changes we want to see in there, then it holds up the process.
So you're saying just do it now, right?
Yeah, I think that Randy should just have the latitude to tailor
Okay.
the posting.
That's fine to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing outrageous in how we did it the last time.
Right.
It's pretty general. that we did the last time. So I think we can just bring it up to date and bring it up to speed, and we'll get her out as ASAP.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I guess like the boards and commissions, maybe update that. We
Yeah.
don't have
Do-
active 18.
Should we state something about experience with federal lawsuits or anything like that? Because we're probably going to be in this process for a while.
I wouldn't find, well, personally, I don't know if that would be that beneficial because I'm not sure how many city managers there are out there that have that very particular qualification. And considering that realistically our attorneys are the ones who handle the nitty-gritty of that, I'm not too concerned about having a city manager who has experience in it. That's just my opinion on that. I don't want to add in things that are going to narrow the field and make someone not
I
put
think
in an
most city
application.
managers have some idea what a lawsuit pertains to, so add federal to it, and it just makes it bigger, but
And all that information is public. I assume that anyone applying will do some research on the
Okay.
city.
All right, so
hope
so
so.
you're not going to change any more? You just want Randy to make all the modifications to this
Yeah, I trust Randy to,
in your spare time?
that's all right. We'll
Okay.
find time for this one. It's in my best interest.
All right, so we've got the motion and you have the directions, and you can just go ahead. We don't need any additional items.
No.
Okay,
I'm all set.
all right. Move on to reports from administration. We'll start with you, Mr. Altimus.
I don't think I have anything particular. As you can see, the voting booths have moved from where they were the last time, so they are put together then downstairs, and they are now certified. So we are moving forward, getting to know them.
Thought it was a little roomier in here.
Yeah. It was quite a process to watch them put these 19 of them together all across the whole room. So it was, and we got to actually get involved in the certification process, which I had not done before. So outside of that, if anybody has some questions or something you need me to look at.
I just have one thing. First of all, I think I'm happy that Spindler Park is cleaned up and the sledding hill's finished. But also on top of that, I don't think we should make it any higher. Extremely high.
No, I don't think, the risk manager at the end of the table doesn't want to go any higher
Yes.
either.
And then the fence along the west side, I was wondering if they were planning on extending that.
I believe so, aren't
They
you?
had to take some of it down for the grading, they will put that back in. Oh, yeah, I thought it was on. Part of it was taken down to do the grading, and that part will be put back in. We're also in the process of getting some quotes on some additional fencing to try to, we're looking at a second level further down the hill to stop people from sliding down the backside, and possibly putting something up at the new top to also keep them from sliding down the backside. But
Yeah, because on that west side where the old fence line ran to the end of that,
Yeah.
if you go past that, it's really steep.
Yep.
And there's trees right at the bottom, so it's going to have to definitely be extended before the season. Otherwise, I think someone's going to.
yeah, we're looking at some, we may not be able to do everything this year, but we're definitely
Right.
looking to, keep people off the sides, so.
I did have a question related to that. In the Metro Mode article, there was some comment that we were going to build a hockey field over there. And I have a real concern about that, number one, because of the length of time that it's going to be frozen. But we already have 3 skating rinks that have never been flooded, that aren't flooded. So I would hesitate about doing that. I think we need to do something on some of our other parks.
Yeah, I think last year we were talking about doing it at the tennis courts, weren't we? And then, of
Right.
course, the weather
It never
didn't-
froze.
Yeah, the weather never cooperated.
Well, there is a hockey rink down at the far end, at the south end of the tennis courts, that used to be the hockey rink. It doesn't need very much, and there's one over at Getz Park, and there's one at Memorial Park.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we haven't discussed doing anything like that.
And that was, a last year topic that never quite panned out, but,
Well, I believe they attempted to
yeah.
make it. It's just, like you said, it never got cold enough to
Yeah, it
freeze.
never got cold enough to freeze it up.
It just
This year
seemed-
will be fine.
seems to me like there's a lot going on at Spindler, and we need to really look at some of our other parks as well.
Yeah, well, We haven't talked about that, so I'm not sure that's gonna go
I
anywhere.
don't know how that got in that article, but it was right there. It was very loud and clear. All right, anything else for city manager?
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, did you want to, Mr. Altemus, discuss your email about city manager duties?
Well, and I hope I didn't go and offend anybody. Thursday was a bad day, Friday was worse, as you can tell by my email of being overwhelmed. Basically, what I'm asking is a little help. Unfortunately, not only have my job duties doubled since last time I was acting manager, but it's a little tough trying to be everybody coming into my office. And you need a point person to help. And the problem is I'm being overwhelmed with staff needing help, consultants needing help. My staff that I have work to do, needing help, and then I'm trying to service everybody here too. And I can't do that. The last time, like I said, as acting city manager, I wasn't the deputy city clerk. If this was a normal election with my old equipment, this would be not a big deal. But I have brand-new equipment that we're learning how to use, that I have to rewrite all the manuals. And as the only certified clerk now that you have on staff, I also have to make sure that I'm part of the training by state law. So we're working our way through that, but my time now with ballots due this week, my time now gets shorter, and I'm going to start dropping the ball. So I'm just asking, consider appointing somebody as acting, whether it's somebody internal who wishes to do it, or external. I just can't do this, and I'm not going to put my health at risk trying to do it. I tried that once. It didn't work real well for me.
Do you know anyone internally that might be interested?
I do, and I think the qualifications of the individual exceed mine.
Regarding this, I had sent over Randy some options, hiring extra staff, like an assistant, getting an external interim person or internal. I don't see an external interim city manager being that efficient, because it would take time for them to grasp the job. If there's someone internally interested, that's something I would like to discuss, because it seems like a good solution if we have someone who's already familiar with the city. This is one of the, and I think because we aren't certain on how long our search will take, that it would be a wise step to take. We didn't do it back in June because I think the understanding up here was that it wouldn't take that long to find a new person. Now, with that being uncertain, I'd rather get someone in there and just to feel like things are stabilized while, until that decision is made. So,
I agree. I had thought 4 months, and that's what it sounded like at first, but does not sound like that'll be the case anymore, so I agree.
I just want to make sure not only the staff's being serviced, but you folks are too, and there's no way I can do that. I can't physically do that.
So are you going to come up with an idea and send it to council? But
Yes.
I think that all of us would be in agreement for whatever you decide to do
Okay.
would be appropriate to the city council.
If
I
that-
agree with that, yeah.
That's fine.
Put this on the agenda for next meeting, then?
What more,
I can.
all right,
well,
Or
we
just
would
the
have to
name?
appoint, if it all works out, then we need to make the appointment, so.
but we don't make another appointment. He would be making it, he's in charge of personnel.
Well, as
No.
appointing an acting city manager, you would have to do that. I don't appoint acting.
And that's what you want to do, is appoint an acting city manager?
Correct.
Okay. Then that would be,
That would be you folks.
right, okay.
I did have some other things to talk about if we're done with that. In terms of the DPW, at this point, we don't really have a director. I think it would be appropriate to have a job posting up for that as well. Right now, I know we have a superintendent, and I think Mary Van Haren had assumed the role for a period of time, but realistically, she is not the Director of Public Works.
No,
Now.
that reverted back to Steve.
So that being the case, our charter does require that we have a Director of Public Works. So I think that we should probably get a posting together to get that process going.
Okay.
And I thought we talked about that recently, so they were designing that, but I think Randy had some thoughts about maybe if, once you appoint an interim city manager or the city manager, that they might have something more to say about the reorganization of the department, whether that was compatible with what their wishes were, and what he would like to see in the lines of the DPW director.
Yeah,
So-
we did start the process to meet our, what we have agreed to within the contract, getting the posting for the assistant DPW person. We posted that today. We need to start putting stuff together, go out to start our list for laborers like we talked about in closed session, so we can get a list going. So we are moving forward on those two items right now. So if you want me to look at that, I can also do that also.
Anything else?
I'm sorry, I know you're moving forward with the civil service stuff. Do you have intentions on posting for the director, or
I didn't know what you were trying to direct me to do.
Okay, that's why.
Well, if you
If you were-
direct an interim city manager, then that person could go ahead and follow through with those things as well.
They would have the time to do that, yes.
I think,
I'm willing to wait till our next meeting if we want to discuss it then. That's fine with me.
Okay.
But the laborers, you could probably go through with that beforehand, could you not?
Yes, yeah, that takes a little more time, but we've already we needed to get the posting internal first, because that was contract related, and we wanted to make sure we got that going, and then get the laborers list. And that could be, a little overwhelming on the process, depending on how many applications we get, but we want to get that process started right now, so.
All right, I have another thing that I did not get a chance to ask you ahead of time. Kind of ran out of time. Again, related to DPW, I'm just wondering, do we have a pavement marking machine now? Do you know?
We used to, I don't know if we still have one.
Not one that functions.
Okay.
Because I think we did it years ago. That was another thing. If we do, I think it's probably going to be at least 15 years old and
Yeah,
not work.
we used to do like our own striping and parking lots, but that was when I first got here in 2002. I don't think, we've never done it since.
Given the discussion that we had about pavement markings before, and it was 300,000+ to do markings around the city, I'd like to look at trying to get another machine and seeing if we can do it ourselves, because part of the restructuring of DPW, we talked about adding, making space for more employees and stuff like that, and it might be something that they can shoulder the burden on, and it might be much more cost efficient to pay for a machine and do it ourselves, because the company bids seem to be pretty high.
Yeah, well, we can also utilize, we've got a relationship with our Roseville and St. Clair Shores counterparts. Maybe they have a machine we can borrow.
Even
They
better.
have been doing that, borrowing back and forth, so maybe they got a machine.
But that
we
would
can
just be a
borrow back.
painting, correct? It's not the impregnating the dye?
No, it would just be a painting machine or line, striping. The other process is a little more involved. We
Right.
can't do that.
Right.
we could even do a combination of both. Stripe certain streets, maybe do the other process on.
Yeah,
other
the
streets.
smaller piece of equipment, you probably could handle the crosswalks and stuff. Doing a street probably is not gonna work that well with that kind of machine. It takes a little bit more layout to get it proper, and you wanna make sure your lanes are correct. So, but we could do, we'd have to take a look at it, but we could do at least the crosswalks and get the school stuff taken care of.
Before it gets too cold.
Yes. That's the other thing, is if it starts getting below a certain temperature, the paint won't
Randy,
adhere.
you probably have an estimate of the cost of the striper machine that we had that isn't working. But that was probably, I don't ever remember it working. It
Yeah.
had to be 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, as I say, I started here in 2002, and I think the last time I ever saw them do it was probably 2009, and that was just crosswalks. But I have no idea how much the machine cost.
Okay.
I did a little bit of research, and there's inexpensive ones, and that, 40,000 that are just like kind of small things, and then goes up to vehicles that do it for you that are like the more professional one.
Right.
I'd be happy to explore either option, because even if it costs $300,000 to buy something that can do 9 mile, well, then we have the ability to do it every single year and have everything look brand new, for the same cost that it costs to do a one-time project.
Well,
So,
we can look at both, see what the pricing is.
and that is all I had questions for today.
And then I just had one more item. I wanted to know a little bit, Mr. Altimus, and if council wanted to jump in about the PRV issues we've had, the two that we've had. Just discuss it a little further back when this happened in Christmas Eve, when the PRV lost pressure and we had to boil water. We fixed it just like we did this last time. And I had discussed with Mr. Duchesne, possibly why don't we put up a generator? We did that after the fact again on July 1st, but why don't we put up a permanent generator? Sounds like from an email between him and I, he thought it would be too expensive and MDOT might not want us to have a little building or area where we would have that sort of generator. So now we've looked into it a little further. This last time, AEW sent us a quote. They said roughly $37,500 we could put in a generator.
A small one.
Sure, I'd assume, though, it would cover the issue if this was to happen again. I was assuming that, I guess,
I would think that they sized it what they thought would run the PRV itself.
But then I think the other thing is MDOT, because MDOT is so fussy about what you put into that median.
it says in AEW's letter, the generator would be installed in the Gratiot Avenue median and will require permits and approvals from MDOT. So I'm assuming it's possible, we would just need to, because they also say concrete pad, protective wire cage, that sort of thing. So I think they understand what
Yes.
MDOT would
Yeah.
require.
Well, they deal with them on a day-to-day basis,
Right.
so.
Until the RTA comes along again. So they're going to redo that proposal again, so.
So I was just interested to see what you thought, Mr. Altimus, or if we should continue looking at this, because as from what I've understood from our finance director, we spent over $300,000 on this last July 1st incident. $37,500
So
would
I
have.
know, I was talking to some DTE people, and they're still reviewing it and looking at some alternate sources of power, so that if one thing went out like it did the last time, that we would still have power coming.
And most of the problem that you had, especially the Christmas incident, was where the guy wiped out the pole and hit it. Unless they feed it from two directions.
And I think that's what somebody was telling me at MML, was they were looking at alternative, because also at this last one, it was because we had 3 power lines down in one area, and so it was pulsating back and forth.
Yeah, that's about the only way I think AEW can figure out that, you just gotta somehow put something in place, so when you lose one leg, you got another one in place, which is why they talked about the generator as a whole, because most of these, like ours here at City Hall, if they even sense a fluctuation in the power, they jump on. So you don't have that problem. We can check both ways to see if DT has come up with a plan. If they not, then I can bring back an issue of, do you want to go out to bid for a generator?
So, and I think he was looking at natural gas generator, was he
Oh,
not?
yeah, we're switching everything
So,
over to
and the
natural gas.
Natural gas line is, down below that median?
We have natural gas all the way down the median, I think.
Is it in the
Along-
median?
Yeah, also along with power, so,
It mentions CMS, energy,
Consumers?
is that what CMS?
yeah.
Consumers Energy Gas Service and Meter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we've been switching all our generators over. If you remember the one we bought at the fire station, we got them off the diesel and got them onto natural gas. Love to do that with PD too, because you don't have to worry about it in a crisis.
You always worry about the propane and so forth.
Well, we're used to running on diesel, so, when we had the blackout, we had basically a diesel tanker sitting behind both locations, so. I can check with Steve tomorrow and see if, he's had any conversation on, a second feed for that. If not, I can let you know that, and then we can look at a generator and what he was talking about doing for that.
How's everyone else feel about that?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Oh, I think it's a necessity. It's either got to be one or the other.
Seems
You know,
like everybody's
It would be
either
my
getting-
preference to not have a generator sit there, because I'm concerned about the generator, how long it's going to be before MDOT tells us you got to move it and so forth. But it would be
Or worse,
really good if we had
vandalized.
two different feeds coming into that source, so that if one goes down, the other one is right there.
I don't know what it is with telephone poles and fire hydrants, but everybody seems to hit both. I'm not sure what it is.
And they're never insured.
Yeah. Which makes it twice as
In
big.
signs,
Yeah.
in signs.
Well, they're wiping out fire hydrants faster than signs,
Well,
actually. But
7 a week?
we were up to 5 last month, so. But I'll look at both and talk to Steve tomorrow.
Okay. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Move on to Mr. Blum. Welcome back from your vacation.
He was gone a week.
Well, that was back at the end of August.
Yeah, I know.
You were gone last week. Oh, but it was a funeral ceremony.
Friday, yeah, I was out on Friday for a funeral, yes. I just had one topic. The parking lot construction is creating some havoc, I guess, and we have a water bill due date coming up on Thursday. Access to the drop box is a bit confusing and may not be accessible by the due date if they rip out the concrete. I would like the consensus of council to waive late penalties for the month of September. If somebody rolls in here on Thursday to put it in the drop box and the sidewalk's out and they can't get to it and now they're late, I just don't want the headache, and it's not the right thing to do. And I'm just looking for a consensus of council to not apply penalties for the month
Do
of
we need a
September.
motion for that?
Just nod your head.
Just
I don't think we need a resolution,
I
just,
think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I
We're,
agree.
we're trying to keep it open and through Thursday, but I don't want to slow them up. The
Yeah, it's
faster
getting a
I
bit
get my
dicey
parking
out
lot
there,
back
so.
in, the better we are too, so.
all right.
Fine with me?
Rich, do you think we need a motion?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I saw enough
then I'm
yeses.
fine with it. I saw him nodding his head, I didn't know, wasn't sure.
I'm pretty sure he'd say something if we were doing something we shouldn't.
All right. Anything else for the finance director?
Oh, I had one question. I know we just, I think, approved our liability insurance. At the MML conference last week, they said, one of the presenters said that they've added IT liability to it, so if you're hacked or something like that. Is that part of our package now?
Yes, it was automatically added 2 years ago.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had that. 'cause
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure. All right, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the city attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members.
So overworked this week.
Been busy, yes. Last week, as council is aware, the City of Holland hosted the MML conference. Last Wednesday, I attended the municipal attorneys portion of that event and met a lot of other city and township and village attorneys, made some great contacts. All of the speakers had great information, great topics, but the one that was of particular interest was the last speaker of the day. He was a law professor from the University of Michigan, and he has come up with this concept, and it's in play in the test stages at certain courts throughout the United States. And it allows district courts, I'm sure maybe it'll expand to circuit courts at some point, but district courts to utilize their websites to process speeding tickets and handle small claims matters and handle driving while license suspended issues for people that may have issues with getting or having transportation to court, with people that can't afford to take a half day or a full day off of work to come to court, to sit in court for 3 hours, to then speak with the city prosecutor for less than 2 minutes to try to get the points waived on a traffic ticket. These are all issues that are certainly of concern to a lot of people, and this website concept resolves that, or at least attempts to, where someone could just sign on, provide their ticket number, and again, this whole process is very expansive. It can be tailor-made for a particular community, but it allows somebody, for instance, in its simplest form, to go online, put in their ticket number, and the city prosecutor will already have reviewed the matter, and there will already be a part of the search engine there that would allow then the person to type in their information and request, say, something less than a speeding ticket and try to keep the points off their record. And then they would either receive a decision whether that could be done or not done, and if it was not able to be done, then they could then schedule a hearing. It would save immense amounts of court time. It would save officers time. Instead of being sitting in court, they would be able to be out on the road. It would save administration expenses. So it's in its infancy stages right now, but it was very, very promising and certainly interesting. And I did share it with Judge Gerds yesterday when I was over at court, and he and the court administrator had heard about this concept, but it's certainly something on his radar as well. And I think that it is a wave of the future. Maybe not next year or 2 years from now, but 5, 10 years down the road. I think that ultimately people will be able to, in lieu of actually going to court, they'll be able to handle that from their smartphone. So really interesting concept.
Have, I lost my train of thought.
There are some courts that use it right now, I think, right?
Well, we use e-tickets now, but this is a lot different than this. This is finalizing it. So-
This is a lot more sophisticated. You're actually, in one example that the law professor gave, the judge or magistrate was actually participating in a real-time discussion between litigants in a small claims action, where they were able to go back and forth and discuss their issues and come to some type of conclusion as to what amount of money, if anything, would be owed, and then make arrangements for payment, all in lieu of coming to court and handling that in a courthouse.
So would that be handled, that has to go through the legislature, right?
I'm not sure.
Are they at that point to take it into the legislature?
I don't think they're at that point yet, but I think just with everything, with technology advancing the way it is, and certainly in the interest of cost savings, that this is something that municipalities are going to utilize here in the future.
I think absolutely, we really need to push on that
Yeah.
because the expenses are so high of running a court after we're paying for all the court-appointed attorneys and everything else.
I mean, I think you think about in the old days, they would, police would have to, or sheriffs would have to bring the prisoners from the jail to be arraigned in front of the judge or magistrate. Now that can be done via live teleconferencing. I mean, that's just one example, and I think this is just the natural progression of technology to allow people, and certainly not all matters, but to allow people on mundane matters such as going and fighting a traffic ticket, for instance, rather than, again, taking time off from work, driving there, sitting around, possibly having to get child care if you have children and you're not able to bring them to court.
We'd have the authority to adopt that, right? The city council? Adopt that initiative, because actually I had heard about this a while ago. I received it in our daily court news at work at the Michigan Court of Appeals. I had forwarded it to Judge Gerds and Ms. Haydette, and they had already heard about it at that time. That was months back. If I recall, the article said that some cities are already using it. It was probably bigger cities that have bigger budgets and more.
And I don't think it's in
Folks
that
implement.
in-depth yet, but again, it's moving in that direction.
Yeah, I'd be interested to.
I'll keep my eyes open, and anything that comes up on the listserv, and maybe in follow-up with that law professor, months down the road, just to see how his concept has advanced. But it was very, very interesting. Yeah. So then that's all I had, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else?
Certainly open to answer any questions.
Okay, let's move on to new business, and our first item is the approval of the special event application for the Eastpointe Lions Harvest Fest to be held October 21st at Eastbrook Commons. Do we have a
Madam-
motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the request from Eastpointe Lions Club to conduct a Harvest Fest on October 21, 2017 at Eastbrook Commons, subject to the following conditions. Provide a certificate of flammability for the 10 by 20 tent and obtain a building permit for the 10 by 20 tent that has sides.
Support?
Is that new, a building permit for the 10 by 20 tent?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I think,
Is that a different name, maybe? Is that
Because
what
I don't ever, we had to have a fire thing, but
Flammability
I don't think that we have,
certificate, not a building permit? Is that what-
right, that's what I was a little bit surprised about the building permit, because it's a temporary.
Oh, I guess maybe it's the same thing because it's the building department. Is that all we maybe meant there?
yeah,
Because if so, I don't think we've applied for it because we weren't aware you needed a building permit.
I think we've done it in the past.
I'm just saying, is a certificate of flammability would be through the building department, I think, so we're talking about the same thing, I think, just.
Because I think
by
that
different name.
the fee that we paid was $75, and I don't think that included the cost of a building permit.
Well, they probably, I don't know that they probably made you pull one. I suspect they probably didn't make you pay for one.
Can you just follow up on that then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion and support.
Yes, we do.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Second item is the purchase of two Toughbook computers for the fire department. Do we have a motion on that, please?
Madam Mayor, I motion to waive competitive bidding requirements due to no advantage to the city and approve the purchase of two Panasonic Toughbook computers for the fire department in the amount of $8,518.94.
Do we have support? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Item C is the item that you added, the discussion of the purchasing policy. And I wish you would have at least told us so that we could have the purchasing policy here.
I have a copy
To
of it.
discuss. Yeah, but we don't have it, we haven't read it, so it's
I-
kind of unfair if you're going to be talking about something and we didn't realize that you were going to be doing it.
Well, I didn't decide till recently I wanted to. It'll be a pretty general discussion. I'm not, and it's a discussion of things that we've talked about at the council table or that residents have come to talk about at the council table. I just thought we should discuss this since there's some recurring items. I think there's a theme with Mr. Creech's FOIA requests. I just wanted to kind of understand how we do our purchasing policy. I believe, Mr. Blum is usually very thorough with his analysis that he gives us, but in terms of the different steps, was there just something that we could look at and change? So as I've said before, I've mentioned the 5,000 limit. That's what Mr. Creech is referring to in what he just said today, actually, was that there were recurring $4,900 invoices. The spirit, I think, of our ordinance was that, in that most recent request, I think it was 23 pages for Mr. Creech, there were 5 separate requests that were between $4,900 and $5,000. I'd assume that would be like a $25,000 purchase, and that would be above 5,000. I mean, it's probably more than that. That was just those example 5 invoices. I was just curious as to how does that get approved? Because that's one of 3 specific.
Were those purchases or were those services?
Well, either way, the ordinance, services or purchases, 5,000 is still the limit according to our.
I know there was discussion maybe
Ordinance.
3 or 4 years ago whether council felt at the time that that should be increased, because when this was originally written, it was back in 2000. And obviously, you've had an increase in charges as well as services. So at that time, it was discussed, is Phil still here?
Yeah, it was when I was on council also, Mr. Costello was on council, it was brought
And
to
then-
council to
And,
raise it to $10,000.
It was never brought back, but there was discussion at the time that it should be increased to 10,000 because it hadn't been increased since 2000.
Sure, I think, at least, well, I'm not interested in looking at that again. That could be further down the line, maybe, for me at least. The other two where we've talked about the fire hydrant installs, and I have just one email where we spent over $100,000 on it. And I think, from what I recall, it was like 190,000 or more. I don't think I ended up getting the final numbers on that, but we spent that amount of money, it wasn't budgeted or came to council. I was just curious as to how these things occur, and then the third thing would be, my third item was the $300,000 or more that we've spent on July 1st. I was curious as to, of course, that was an emergency. We needed to expend emergency funds. But as far as I don't believe all 300,000 or more, that wasn't all spent on July 1st. We came back, at Stricker and Cushing, there's plenty of concrete that was laid there. It wasn't laid on July 1st. It was over the next 2 months.
Because you had to wait for it to settle before you could put the cement on.
Sure, so I'm saying there was time to come to council to look at that or put a bid out, because how do I know that we got a good price on it? I'm just saying these, I think, are the things we should review, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up as a discussion item.
Didn't the emergency clause that the city manager put out on that day include cement?
Yeah, and actually, the cement is through our water main slap contractor. That's where the concrete's coming from, so it is under a contractor that or through a vendor that is under contract. If Italia had been in town, we could have used them. They're still not here. So we've used an alternative contractor that we have in place.
I'm just saying, so if the concrete wasn't put in on July 1st and the street wasn't blocked off, or as far as I know, it was not, we could have discussed that at the council why, it looked like there was a lot of concrete at that corner and the water main was in one little corner. I don't know why we put so
Yeah,
much
and there's
down.
still a couple big jobs left where places have been washed out. We know there's voids underneath that have to be fixed at the appropriate time. As far as bringing it back to council, it's something that's got to be done. It's part of the general maintenance. Once a water main break has happened, you wouldn't go out for bid for a couple intersections here or there.
What's historically water main break cost?
Which part, we're talking
fix-
specific concrete?
Just rough, you go that day, DPW guys or a contractor comes out, fixes the break, it's not leaking anymore, you put some asphalt in, and it's fixed that day. What?
It actually depends on the size of the main, but it can be anywhere from $3,000 up to 12, depending on the size and how long it takes.
Right, so if we had 4 or 5 water main breaks, my math adds up to 50 grand or less. And
For the labor portion, correct. Yeah. Most of our cost is gonna be the concrete replacement. It is every year. And we have $600,000 budgeted for concrete for water main breaks.
And we do have a contract with a concrete company for miscellaneous
Right.
repairs. Actually, 2 or 3
Yeah.
concrete companies.
Just depends who's around at the time.
What company is that for the SAP? Is that Fontana?
JJ Mish is under contract for, they're one of our subcontractors for the water main breaks and the concrete replacement. And I believe that's where most of this concrete's going to be going through. We have a pardon me?
Sorry, do they do the concrete?
They can subcontract. We don't care, as long as they get the job done. and it's under the contract pricing. Itali is also under contract for both sidewalks and street repairs, and if they would show up anytime before October, they'd be doing this part right now. But they seem to be busy elsewhere. And I don't recall who the third contractor is off the top of my
We
head.
try to have a couple just because of, somebody's not available. That's how we've kind of tailored the bid. And they're usually three-year bids. I think we got one more year on I think we got one more year
Yeah,
on the concrete bids.
something like that.
I think we just did it.
Can you send that out to us? So I guess then, let's start with, so the hydrants. Those weren't even in the budget, and then we installed those. That wasn't an emergency situation, so this one's a little easier to understand. How do we go about just doing that? What's the approval process internally to say, someone's like, okay, I mean, I know we have some fire hydrants from the 20s, or we have, maybe they've been hit by a car. Maybe it wasn't an emergency, they nicked it or something, but we should replace it, something like that. Internally, does the DPW director just have someone say, hey, go fix this, and then they bill us?
Well, most of the time, some of that comes out of a contract that you've already approved. And in a lot of cases, I think we've actually brought back extension of contracts or extension of unit prices to you to have you approve the extension of the project. And there's different opinions on that project alone.
But we didn't do that the hydrants didn't come to council at all, though.
I understand.
I thought hydrants was in the plan. Replacement of
They
the-
had a unit price for doing that by the contractor, because they were already doing some of the work, and
Because they were in place replacing water lines, and so it was important to put the hydrant on at that time, rather than coming back to council for them. So I think the next time you do water lines, and there's a possibility that there might be hydrants, it would be smart to include the possibility of putting hydrants in. But we were switching over to different hydrants with different locks or whatever they call them. So I think that's why they ended up putting those particular in at that time.
But usually, we try to come back with everything to make sure if we're extending something or something's outside of the scope of the contract, we try to bring it back to this board for approval. I've always required that. Sometimes I'm not always involved.
Okay. I guess I'd just like to see this improved, because just adding up these, 3 projects, we're easily looking at $500,000.
Well, the
didn't come through
300,000, I don't know whether you saw some of the initial bubbling. I don't think I sent you that email. That was down on Cushing, but that street, probably a quarter of the block, was underwater and bubbling, and it took a great deal of effort. JJ, you were there, weren't you, with several of the lines? But it took quite a bit of time just to turn off the water at all of the different breaks, and then to go back and fix them. And of course, the ones that got fixed the first were the ones that were in the high-traffic area. And so you put as fast as a covering on it as soon as you can repair the water main. But for the most part, those are all down about 20 feet. But they were really deep, deep holes. You went down to one of them, but
I went to all 4, or at the 4 I knew of. I don't know if there was a
there
5th.
there were a lot more. It was a very busy night, and you didn't even answer me back until 8 o'clock in the morning, but we had been on talking to people since 3 o'clock in the morning. I think you got your first call about 10 minutes to 3, as I remember. So, but we did get that emergency documentation that was done, and I think it was at,
So I'm just saying, who decided that we needed, who approved that we needed that much concrete done? Why, if you go to that corner, we did half a block of concrete. We didn't just fix the one little pad there.
I believe it was
where-
caving in
Right,
from all the
once you
water.
open up around the water main break, you can see where it's washed out, and you have to keep working back until you actually have a base. And these water main breaks just wash the base out.
So we allowed cars to drive on it while it was washed out.
Yep. It's that or shut the road down.
Well, sounds like to me, I'd say shut the road down. Why would
Listen,
we let?
people don't stop when you have brand-new, freshly laid cement. What makes you think they're not gonna go through a water puddle?
No, I mean, if we have an orange barrel, well, I mean, if they go, I mean, that's a whole different story. If someone goes in and we have orange barrels up and they, you know, that's their fault.
I mean,
We,
it's not like there's a
okay.
20-foot sinkhole underneath the road. I mean, if a car drove over and it broke, it might drop a couple feet,
I,
but it's got to be fixed once it's opened up.
correct me if I'm wrong. I'm hoping that what you're saying is that once you start digging up to put the pavement down, that's when you see where not just initially when you do a patch that's 7 by 7 feet or something like that. When you come back to lay that cement, you might find the other, are you saying that when we're aware?
No, I'm sure the evening the water main breaks were going on, they knew stuff was washed out back behind there.
who makes
But
that determination?
That, it would be I'm assuming it's between the supervisor and the contractor. As far
If
as
I
how
had
much
my
needs to
cell
be
phone
done.
here, I would show you the initial videos, because they were taken at night under searchlights.
I saw it, and I was,
I don't think you saw them all.
okay, well, I went there the next day, it was a Saturday, and it
Well-
looked pretty typical of a,
I think
water main
sometimes
break.
too, when you start opening up, they start caving in, you have a problem with that too. I wasn't here for that incident, but I know under other circumstances that as you start cutting pavement, you start getting cave-ins, and then at that point.
Well, a
you gotta
classic
keep going.
example is we started doing some catch basin repairs on Hofer, and every time they opened one up, another panel was breaking. We ended up rebuilding Hofer and Aurora, all because as the equipment drove on it, it just collapsed behind it. It wasn't because we wanted to spend that much money, it was because we had to, the road just fell apart. And that's what you get whenever there's these washouts, is it kind of goes back until you get to solid ground again. And you never know until you crack this pavement open how big a problem it's gonna be. That's where we're almost afraid at some point to even do anything, because you find a problem every time you do.
okay. So if we're spending that much, though, so say it is all washed out, wouldn't they need to get approval through you to spend that much money? What if it was
Until
4
they
times the
exceed
size?
budget, I mean, like I said, we got a $600,000 budget. They'll probably burn half of that up with this one incident, but they're within budget. So until we start getting close to the $600,000 mark for the year, and then it's a matter of, do we go back and do a budget amendment, or do we just stop? I mean, that's a decision that the city manager would need to make.
So, but the actual approval, since it won't go to you, if it's within the budget, would be probably the Department of Public Works,
Correct.
of which we don't have a director right now. So that's the problem of not having one.
But I think that emergency situation, that was being handled by the city manager himself personally.
Yes, which, without a director, that's where it goes.
Yes.
Because I think Cardy was trying to ask who signs off on it, and, you know,
For that
it-
incident.
it's
it
not,
would've been
there's not a
city
clear
manager.
answer right now because the roles aren't filled properly. So hopefully
I'd like to
that
clear that up, I guess. is-
approval
yeah.
process will be like clearly laid out when we fill the positions properly. And then in regards to the purchasing, the thing with the fire hydrants shouldn't have happened. And it's just something that when we are interviewing city council, or our city manager candidates and stuff like that, it's gonna be part of the process of just ensuring we have someone who will make sure that the purchasing ordinance is followed. So, I mean, so basically, the myriad of issues you're raising, I think, are properly tackled when we get a department head and straighten out the structure over there, and then get a city manager who clearly will run the, finances and
Follow
approval
the
process.
processing, yeah.
Yeah. I think we're,
You're not interested at all in increasing this 5,000
Not
to
right.
10,000?
I don't think at this time.
no, I'm not interested in increasing the amount.
I mean, I think right now, though, I'd like to see, since we've had already a couple examples, Mr. Blum or Mr. Altimus approve purchases, I mean, over 5,000 like the ordinance, so that we don't run into another example very soon.
Well, understand when somebody puts in a requisition, Mr. Blum and I all are looking at those and checking them as we go along. Again, if you get multiples or something going on where somebody puts in a 4,900, 1 month and 2 months later you get another one, that's impossible for us to know that's going on. But we check and make sure that if it's a big purchase like that, that it's actually something that actually is following the purchase. He and I approve all requisitions almost every day, basically. So we are trying to watch it, but in an emergency situation, that gets out of our control,
So,
and that's handled
and-
by the department.
You have to remember that the week before, I wrote an email to each one of you and suggested that all of you were going to be out of town, and that if we did have an emergency, what were we going to do? And I don't know why I did this. I just thought, for some reason, what were we going to do? Because we had nobody to vote on any type of emergency expenditures. And the only person that answered me was Sarah. And she said, well, we're all going to be out of town. When the emergency happened, I was called at 2:45 in the morning, and the only person that I could get a hold of was Mike, who called me at 4 o'clock in the morning from Montana. So there was no way that I could get any kind of consensus to say, we're going to have to approve all these emergency expenditures, and it may be really expensive. Because by that time, I had, about 8 o'clock in the morning, I had some kind of assessment of how many water main breaks and how much it might end up doing. And it really wasn't too far off, because we made a second guess about $250,000. So it was not that far off from what it was. But Mr. Duchesne did send out a note and said this was an emergency, and he approved the expenditures for that, as well as for the labor coming from Roseville and St. Clair Shores, as well as J.J. Mish, to help us get through this, because it was really critical that we get our water turned back on as soon as possible. So, I mean, there were multiple areas that had no water supply, although the main part of the city did have water supply. It was a really tough choice about whether we had to turn off the water to everything, every place, or just a few. And it took some while for JJ and Tony to go out to the various places and turn off the water supply to the water main breaks, so we could go from there. So when you're in an emergency situation, and I will be happy to let some of you take that choice and sit there on the telephone and answer some of these emergencies, you have to make some very quick decisions. And the bottom line is to think of the residents in the city and what's going to suit them best. And I will never forget Tony Pry saying to me, if I turn off all the water supply, we have so many businesses that start their shifts at 4 o'clock in the morning, so at least this way, I can go to where I know there's going to be a business and start fixing that water line immediately. And the businesses up on 10 Mile Road didn't have to close that day because they did have water. But they might not have had water if Tony hadn't jumped on it and got the necessary people and equipment to fix it. So sometimes you just have to move fast.
Sure. If we could get back up to Mr. Altimus, what you're saying, in Mr. Creech's FOIA, there's 6 different invoices that we paid to Star Mechanical on one day, and 2 of them are 4,900 and change, 3,800, 1,300.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean they came across as a requisition that day. In other words, if a requisition comes
Right.
through and it's multiple weeks, then,
Right, but wouldn't at this point we red flag, like, that there's so many?
it is if you catch it and say something comes through 1 week and it's another month later than another one, it may all be paid, or processed at that point to Mr. Blum's department on the same day, but not necessarily does it mean that the requisition came through. And again, we try very hard to make sure we catch those things. So, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah, okay. I think that was everything I had for the discussion. If anyone else had anything?
Well, I'll just repeat that, I understand the issues you're talking about, and I think we have to fill those positions so that we have just a clear line of authority,
Someone to
so.
watch over everything a little bit closer to hopefully avoid this happening in the future.
And, oh, actually, I did have one more thing for the purchases under 5,000 part of the ordinance. That's why I passed out both. All purchases in an amount of less than 5,000 may be made in the open market without sealed bids and council approval. I'm just reading the ordinance. However, it shall be the duty of the purchasing agents to secure informal bids by telephone or otherwise, or any purchase when feasible. Sounds, if we're doing, $4,900 at a time, we should be doing an informal bid. Well, then we would realize it's over 5,000. But looking at the even under 5,000 ordinance, we should realize, this is going to be more than 5,000 of work by the informal process, because maybe you think it's $4,000, and then everyone's like, yeah, it's gonna be $8,000. Then at that point, should be brought to council.
Usually between 2 and 5, we try to get, call a couple vendors to get pricing. If we, can find 2 to give us pricing.
Sure.
So we try to do that, or, if we're just, can't only get one, then we just,
Right. Yeah, sure.
Was that it?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, let's move on to payroll and bills.
Madam Mayor, I'll make motion to pay the bills in the amount of $1,375,117.17.
Support?
Support it. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido.
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley.
Yes. Move on to the second hearing in the public. Does anyone wish to be heard? Ma'am. Please, and state your name. Once you get to the microphone. If you've never been here before, you have 3 minutes that you can say anything at all. And after 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I'll remind you, you only have 30 seconds to go.
Okay. My name is Drusilla Abbo. I live at 24464 Beck Avenue. I would like to address the issue of the wall noise that all of the families that live from 10 Mile to Stevens, and especially since they built the wall over on the St. Clair Shore side, it is very uncomfortable, very unbearable. It has been addressed, not by me initially, but by many people several times, and they said that that situation belongs to the state as well as part of Eastpointe. So we were also told that once one side of a wall is built, it's not, I don't know if legal is the right word for the other side not to be, because now the noise is even louder, because we can't even go in 1,100 square foot house. From the living room to the kitchen, you can't hear the person unless you walk back in the room. With the windows open on a cool night like tonight, we can't deal with it and keep them open to go to sleep because of the noise. And outside, unless you come a foot in front of somebody, you can't hear each other. The noise, like I said, since that wall has been put up, has made it worse. And I know it's just from 10 Mile to Stevens is a half a mile, but is it that the Eastpointe part is not cooperated, or is it the state? Because we've been told that that part of that wall, that land there right above 94 said it's a state issue, and or partly to Eastpointe as well. So we wanted to know if there's anything that could be done about that. I know it's not something that affects the whole city, but for the families that live along that strip, it is just miserable. You can't even sleep in your bedrooms with your windows open and your door closed for privacy because I can't breathe. So every night, I have to leave my husband to go sleep in the living room. It's just, you can't. And the noise and stuff. You can't even try to sleep with the windows open to get a breath of fresh air because of the noise and stuff. It's just, that wall made it worse. It was bad enough before that was put up. But since it is a state and city matter, is there anything that could be addressed from the Eastpointe part, or?
We can address it after, when it's mayor and council reports.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Creech?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council. Thank you, Cardy. And if you want a few more, I'll just read you a few more at 4,900, just for the heck of it. Right here, we've got one. It says, Star Mechanical, Furnace Ducts, Electrical, 4,975. We got another one here. It says Star Mechanical. These are for Memorial Field, not for Spindler. We got Memorial Field, 4,995. Air Furnace and Memorial Field land. Here's another one, 4,000. It's unbelievable. That's not red flag. Somebody has said it's real simple. Here it is in black and white. I just did Spindler. Now I just give her Memorial. I would like to please ask the council to investigate. To investigate why these things got through. You're here, that's what I said before too. Please, this isn't, what I really, as I said before too, it says purchases. It says all purchases and of contracts. Contractual services. It says purchases $5,000 or more, formal bidding. It says shall be approved by council. They ran it through you under $5,000. Not just one, not just two, not just three, not just four. We can keep going and going and going and going. Somebody had, I said before too, and as a matter of fact here, it says, the best one is, it says materials and labor and travel time, work called in by Tony Pry. Why is Tony calling in some of this work? I don't know, I'm just asking a question. Why does Tony call in some of this work? It's not on one of them, it's on more than that. They're all under Star Mechanical. Who didn't watch it? I'll tell you what, somebody's not watching. I tell you what, there's a fox in the chicken coop somewhere along the line, and I guess what I really want to get to right now is just the water. And there again, too, this is addressed to Mr. Blum. Last time he said, that 18% loss. Last week alone, just for the heck of it, I went down to our DPW. The trucks pulled out of there on Tuesday, and from there they went to 9 Mile Road in Jefferson. They poured a road over there. They poured, let me see. Let me get this out real quick. Yeah, we poured a road over there of, they poured Florence, it was a contractor, and they poured Clairwood on Jefferson, and they poured Willard over here in Roseville. Tuesday they poured in St. Clair Shores, and Thursday they poured in Roseville. I thought the gentleman said we were only using water for our contracts, for the city's use. 18%. Please. Here's your water hydrants and stuff that come out of your DPW. There aren't meters. Please take a look at it.
Your time is up, sir.
Please take a look at it. There's a lot of things going on you people better start paying attention to.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone? Seeing none, the second hearing of the public is closed. Move on to mayor and council reports, and we'll start with Mr. Kleinfeld, please.
Okay, just to respond to some of the comments at the hearing of the public. I don't have a response for the wall. I'm actually not sure where the state and where the Eastpointe limit is. I'll ask administration about that afterwards. If we can't put up a wall, I think shrubbery and stuff like that's always an option for noise. But in terms of the DPW, I know it's council comments. Is there any response that you wanted to give to that? I know that
You can give the response. We all got the same report
Okay.
from you.
My understanding on that is that St. Clair Shores, Roseville, and Eastpointe are sharing some of the equipment and services. So far, that's just the initial information we've gotten. I think we might have a more detailed answer. I know I have a couple of questions on how that works, but haven't been able to figure that out yet. I'm happy that we're going to be moving forward with hiring a city manager. Some of the issues that Cardi raised, I think are issues because we have these gaps in administration right now. The roles that are not filled are ones that provide oversight and approvals and things like that, which is why I think it's imperative to get moving on all of this. So hopefully, we can kind of get everything settled within the next 3 months is my hope, but like I said before, I'm not going to hire a city manager until there's a qualified one in front of us. Happy anniversary to my parents. I think it was like 31 years this past week or something like that. So they're doing good.
Before you were born.
Yeah. Congratulations, Mom. Condolences to my father. So, I'm just kidding. And then homecoming is on October 14th. The parade is 11 a.m. to noon, followed by the game. Just wanted to have everyone aware of that. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Lucia?
I just have a couple of things this evening. First of all, Tuesday, October 3rd at 2 p.m., Fran Salvatore will be at the library hosting fall dishes. Registration is required for the event. Also, just to let everyone know, tomorrow the 8K Homeowners Association is hosting a Meet the Candidate Night. It begins at 7 p.m. at Pleasant View Elementary School. I do encourage everyone to come out and meet all of the candidates that will be running in this November's election. And that'll be it for this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. DeMonico?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Who came to hearing of the public, can you give your information, if you didn't already, to Linda over here? Just like contact information, so we could follow up with you. If we could follow up about, is there not a wall there at all? I think it was, okay, so there's no wall.
We
Yeah.
already, I'll speak to that because I
Okay.
followed up on that several times.
Okay, thanks. And then, yeah, I think we all still miss Mr. Sweeney. I'm glad Phil came up here, talked about Bill. He is definitely greatly missed in the city. Can't believe it's been 3 years already. And as we said last meeting, it's Constitution Week. We made an Eastpointe proclamation, so just wanted to share a random piece of information about the Constitution. I don't know if everyone knew, the last amendment was in 1992. It's pretty recent, actually. Congress can't give themselves a raise during their current, they couldn't give themselves a raise right now and it'd be active immediately, wouldn't be active till the next Congress. That was May 7th, 1992. So go out and learn a couple more things about the Constitution this week. Second, call for artists again. Talk to Ms. Van Haren, talk to the city. September 7th, which has already passed, of course, to the 30th, was our call for artists. So if you know an artist out there, have them submit, and we'll be showing it off at our newly renovated Patriot Building. The show is October 26th and November 3rd. And then we still need some more beautification members. If anyone's interested, talk to the mayor. She can put you forward and the council approves you, but we could use a few more members. So if you're interested or know someone that would be interested in the Beautification Commission, please fill out the board application. It's on our city website. You can get it here too at City Hall. That would be great. And then Mr. Kleinfeld already mentioned the homecoming football game. As he said, 11 a.m. parade and 1 p.m. kickoff if you missed him say that. And then just also look out next year for the Anton Art Center art party. They do it every year. It's a very fun event, and if you've never been to the Anton Art Center, period, it's out in Mount Clemens, check it out. If you know anyone into art or anything, you definitely need to check it out. Even if you're not into it, you will be after you check out the Anton Art Center. So look out for their art party, a very nice event where the benefits go to charity, and just take a look out for that, and check out the Anton Art Center if you can. And I think that is all, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to compliment, Bill Driscoll made some contacts with Metro Mode, and they did a fantastic article about the city of Eastpointe. I don't know if any of you have read them, but it was a good article, and I thought it really highlighted a lot of the good things that are happening in our city. Several of our restaurants have won top awards recently, namely Detroit Wing had some of the best wings, and Villa. Also, they came in second place in the whole metropolitan Detroit area, and they even beat Andiamo. So it's really nice when we have a lot of good places in the city of Eastpointe, and we can acknowledge those. Beautification, we're not getting minutes, so I don't know what happened to your secretary, but that's usually how I know if you have a space, because nobody tells me when you need a member.
Well, yeah, because Andrea was the secretary and she hasn't been.
So it's really important that we get the minutes, have them sent to council. Sir, I hate to say it, but usually it's a woman that ends up doing the
I'm not on
minutes.
beautification anymore.
Okay,
I stepped down when I joined planning.
when you're on
commission.
planning, right. So guess who that's gonna be,
So
Cardi?
Did them at one meeting, but yeah, I guess we probably need to get back on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did notice on our new website, the commissions are not on there and telling who's on. So we did talk with Randy today, so he's got Steve working on that already to get it onto our website and update the list. Speaking of the list, we have a couple people who are sick tonight. Our best wishes to Pat Mann. So it's Bill Sweeney's father-in-law, but he's in the hospital, but doing well. And then also to Shirley Peak, who is a longtime activist within the city, and her husband is gravely ill. So best wishes to both of those people. The 8K homeowners tomorrow night should be a really good meeting. It always is. And for anyone who's never been to the 8K homeowners as a candidate, you don't have to worry. You just have to talk about yourself, and nobody peppers you with questions while you're on a microphone. So just relax, it'll be nice, and they're always really nice to people. The lady about the wall. When I first became a councilwoman 12 years ago, that was the number one thing when everybody I talked to on Beck was about the wall. So I did follow up on it. MDOT is a federal highway. It's run by the state even polices it, I-94. They put a wall on one side, and I was told that they can't put a wall on the other side, which still makes no sense to me. So if you want to start a campaign, the person to speak to is your state legislator. So we got two of them. So you have a state senator, who's Steve Beta, and a state representative, who's Kevin Hertel. So that's where you can start and have them find out some more about it. But that was the answer, and it seems like every 5 years, somebody from Beck comes forward, and I tell them the same thing, because I was on a real crusade trying to get that done. And I think there's a federal regulation related to it that says you can only have a wall on one side, which makes no sense at all to me. Because the volume, I've been over there, and the volume on that street, particularly at night when you notice it, is really, really high.
Go down farther, there's two walls on the side.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
But when I-94 was built, there was a big petition from the people that lived in that area to put a wall up, and they wouldn't do it. I know, and I do not understand, because if you go down 696, there's walls on both sides. So I'm still on that crusade. If you want me to help you on the crusade, I'd be more than happy to do that. There's a chamber event this week. And then auction, I was told today that the auction tickets are going really, really fast. So the auction is the first week of November. I believe it's the day after the election. And they said that the tickets are almost gone, so.
I believe it's 2 days after the election.
2 days.
Veterans Day.
Yeah,
9th? 9th?
that'd be the ninth.
Yeah, 9th, I believe.
Is it?
Ninth.
Anyway, if you can go over to the chamber office, you can get your tickets for that. And I have nothing else at the moment. So I would appreciate a motion to go into closed session.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to go into closed session for attorney-client privileged communication regarding the pending DOJ lawsuit and for privileged communication regarding a personnel matter.
Support.
Moving support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Move to close